Let's talk about Lewis Hamilton's Spanish Grand Prix. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is there to talk about? He qualified third, he started third, he finished third, right? That's a pretty clear example of a good weekend, right? Like, good job, let's go party. But like everything in life, it's about more than the destination, it's about the journey. That's a horrible line. So let's take a look at his journey, okay? So lights go out, and Lewis right away gets a horrendous start. Okay, he loses positions to George, Charles, and Carlos. Now, thanks to some really impressive driving, he goes on the inside of Carlos, first corner, swings it around the outside of Charles, second corner, to net only losing one position to his teammate George. So he's avoided total disaster, but he's still lost a position. And I want to show you guys what that bad start actually looks like in the data. So through the magic of editing, you guys will be able to see my screen here. This is a website called f1tempo.com. It's got all of the telemetry from every driver, from every session, from every race, all the way back to 2018, and it's displayed really nicely. So this is lap one. If you take a look at the speed, so this is the speed. So Russell is in white and Lewis is in blue. You'll notice pretty much the entire first phase of the race here, the white is above the blue. So Russell's, he's ahead of Lewis, and he's gaining on him. He's pulling away from him the whole time, right? So he's always a few kilometers ahead in speed. And when you add that up over the course of start to first corner, being 5 kilometers ahead throughout that entire crescendo, he's quite a ways ahead. Now, if you scroll down and look at the throttle, this is really the interesting part. So look at the white. This is Russell, smooth and steady all the way up to full 100%. Now look at Lewis's blue. He goes up and then he has to let off the throttle. This indicates he probably got some wheel spin, so he needs to let off the throttle, let the tires grip back up before he's able to keep applying the throttle. So you see this dip here, and then look at the gap, right? And if you go down to gears, so they both started on first gear, obviously. Lewis lets off the throttle right about here. And because of that, he has to stay in first gear longer. So see, George gets into second gear, and Lewis is still hanging on to first, just trying to grab some traction. So that's the start. So back to the now we're into the first phase of the race. So Lewis is in fourth behind George, and Mercedes, from a strategy perspective, they play it pretty safe, pitting Lewis for mediums, lap 16, which is within 1 lap of George, Verstappen, Sainz. So they're all kind of pitting in that 16 lap time. This is the optimum strategy as kind of simulated by most of the teams to do the soft, medium, soft. But at this point in the race, this is when it gets interesting, because Charles Leclerc decides not to pit. So he goes for the overcut. Same thing that Lando does, trying to get past Verstappen. So after the first round of pit stops, it becomes clear to Mercedes that Ferrari's going to try to overcut them with Leclerc, right? So this is going to massively impact the next phase of the race here. So phase 2 of the pit stops, Russell's dropped back to third now, so Lando's got past him. So we have 2 Mercedes followed by 2 Ferraris. So what does Mercedes do? If you take another look at the screen here, so this is the state of things going into the second round of pit stops. So if you look at Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, you can see they all pitted right around the same time here. And just below that, you have Leclerc, and he's held on to that first round of softs much longer, which means he's got much fresher mediums. He's going to be gaining on the 3 ahead of him on these fresh mediums, and then he's going to pit those fresh mediums and go for softs a little bit later than the 3 ahead of him, and have still fresher rubber right to the end. So same thing that Lando tried in our previous video, where he's trying to have fresher rubber at the end to make the overtake. Leclerc is trying the same thing. So what does Mercedes do? Well, you have to think about it from a self-preservation perspective, right? They've got third position and fourth position. If the overcut doesn't work, then they're not at risk, obviously. But if it does work, if Mercedes keeps Russell and Hamilton on the same strategy, let's say they pit them both at the same time for softs to go to the end, if Leclerc's overcut strategy turns out to be faster, then he's likely going to get past both of them and steal that last position. So it's at this point that Mercedes decides to split their strategies as well, in the hopes that if Leclerc's overcut is fast, hopefully it won't be faster than both of their strategies, right? So this is when they pit George to go on to hards, lap 37, and Ferrari responds by pitting Sainz in the same lap to also go on hards, and then Lewis runs to lap 44 to go onto the softs, and Charles pits 4 laps later as well to go on the softs. So Charles still has fresher tires, and he's trying to catch them. And then this leads us into the final phase of the race, which from didn't really change anything. That strategy. The only thing this strategy ended up doing was we just found out that the hard tire was really not a good tire to be on. So Leclerc wasn't able to catch the Mercedes, but he was able to get past his teammate Sainz. And Russell also struggled on the hard, so Lewis was able to repass him at the end and get back to his third position. So in the end, didn't end up working out for Ferrari, did end up working out for Lewis in a big way. You know, if I was to summarize Lewis's race, he got pretty lucky this race. You know, he had a really, really bad start with the wheel spin there, dropping back 3 positions by the first corner. To his credit, he had some great driving to get past both the Ferraris by, in the first 2 corners. But then he just got really lucky with strategy. Russell was looking like he was going to take the podium from him, and it was just that split strategy that put Lewis up ahead at the end, which was kind of a coin toss from Mercedes' perspective as to which driver they were going to split like that. So I hope you found this interesting. I find it really interesting to look at these strategies, and even though you look at the results from how it started to a finish, you think, oh, the Mercedes and the Ferraris, nothing changed, right? Nothing changed at all. But then you look at it throughout the race and you see that there was this kind of mind games and strategy back and forth, and they're trying to see if they got an advantage, and even if it doesn't materialize into anything, it's still cool to see what all the teams are trying, just to on the off chance that something works, right? And this is also a cool example because there's no red flags here, there's no yellow flags, so it's a very simple race to analyze. You can see it's just pure strategy. There's no really luck involved. So because that can really, from a strategy perspective, that just throws everything, throws a spanner in the works. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. Subscribe to see more, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.